Hello everyone! If you ask yourself which character has the more valuable buff between Sucrose and Kazuha, then you are correct here. I made this video kind of as a follow-up to a video about the patch 3.7 banners in which I called Kazuha not a must pull, said Sucrose is better, and a bunch of people disagreed, so I feel compelled to give my reasoning behind that. First of all, I was hyperbolic in this video. I slightly tilt the scales in Sucrose's favor, but they are still close. That being said, if there is a 4-star character closely competing with a 5-star character, in my mind, that's not a must pull. I said the exact same thing about Fischl and Yae Miko in the same video. She's also not a must pull for the same reason. Now I realize I can't convince anyone anyway with just talking or showing some gameplay, so this is gonna be a kind of a boring video just looking at raw numbers. Before we get into that though, we don't have to talk about one mono element teams like Mono Electro or Freeze for example. If you don't do damage with elemental reactions, Sucro's elemental mastery buff obviously does nothing. Kazuha is undeniably better every time. And 2, transformative reactions don't scale with elemental damage bonus, like Overload, Electrocharge, Bloom, Hyper Bloom, etc. All of that only scales off the character's level and elemental mastery. This time, Kazuha does nothing for these teams, and Sucrose is obviously better. I think these are general true statements, though there are some nuances to these characters which might lead to some exceptions. Kazuha has slightly noticeable personal damage, while Sucrose does no damage at all, but she can be used on field with normal attacks to apply anemo, which Kazuha cannot do. And one more thing, some people also argue that Kazuha is easier to play, which I generally agree with. If your main criteria is a character has to be easy to play, then that's fine, but I also think it's a different conversation. I try to find out which character is better, not how long it takes you to get used to them, lower barrier to entry I guess. Again, to be very clear, if that's something you value, then chances are high that you will prefer him over Sucrose. Just because I don't care, it doesn't mean it's wrong for you to care about that. Now for the main points of contention, finally, Melt, Vaporize and Catalyze teams mainly focused on Aggravate damage. Obviously, Kazuha can't buff Dendro damage, so for spread he doesn't really do anything. For the builds and teams, I simulate them on the Genshin optimizer website. I don't know if it has some other name, but you will probably find it by just googling if you're interested. Definitely Kazuha is easier to build. I think he needs way less energy recharge. I just pre-selected 140% and he came out with 1000 elemental mastery on the Viridescent set. So we take this. First, for a melt team, I think most people would agree that jungling is like the prime pyro DPS, so we built a team around her. This is just a placeholder, so it could be an Ayaka melt team, it could be Ayato, Vaporize team, whatever you want. Doesn't matter, it's just a placeholder right now. Bennett has great synergy with jungling thanks to her snapshotting and pyro resonance, so we pick him up, use the noblesse set and the burst skill activated here to get these buffs on your jungling. And for Kazuha, pyro swirl reaction for the pyro res shred from the Viridescent set, and obviously his main thing, the extra 40% pyro damage bonus, is both activated. Now we go to the optimize section. We optimize jungling for obviously her pyro damage, tornado, and we do melt damage. And we pre-selected 180% energy recharge because she just needs it. Now I will probably generate this build and it will take pretty much forever. Oh, I pre-selected the emblem set, I just realized. I just allow everything. So you see everything is allowed, 307 artifacts. So I generate the build, this will take forever, so I will probably just pause the recording. As you see, it takes forever, and just resume it when it's done. And it's done. I actually left my PC for a second, it was faster than I expected. It's still the same team. With Kazuha's buff, we ended up with Pyronado damage, melt damage, close to 70k on jungling. Now we obviously want to compare that to Sucrose, and I just compare their innate buffing capabilities. So for Sucrose, I'm not gonna use the Hakushin Ring or the Thrilling Taste of the Dragon Slayer. I'm gonna use the Sacrificial Fragments, and I'm gonna use about 170 energy recharge on the Viridescent set, of course, and we end up with 900 elemental mastery, which is obviously less but more energy recharge. We equip this for said Viridescent build again and go back to jungling. Team, switch out Kazuha for Sucrose. And I want to make very clear that I'm just using the Virindescent set and both of her Ascension passives. I'm not gonna use the C6 buff, so this is not active, so I want to make that very clear. And I go to optimize, and same thing, 180 energy recharge, jungling, everything is active. I click generate build, and I'm gonna pause this again and resume once it's done. And it's about to be done, so now we will see how much Sucrose impacts the Pyronado damage. And we actually come out with like about 2000 damage more for Sucrose. Now, you could say a lot of people prefer to play, I think it's called Dragon's Bane? Yeah, Dragon's Bane over the cache, so I'm just gonna do the same for both characters. Again, I just pause because it just takes long. And we just got our results with the Dragon's Bane jungling for Sucrose teams, and it's 66k Pyronado damage with the melt reaction. Now we just do the same thing for Kazuha again. We actually don't have to optimize luckily, so we already have the build here. Just equip this, back to jungling, and switch this out. And again, you know it by now, I generate the build, see you in a minute. And we are done with the Kazuha results for the Dragon's Bane build, and it will be 67k, so basically no difference, a little less for Kazuha. And now you could argue, well, this is an emblem set character, obviously it's very high damage bonus anyway, this is all additive with Kazuha's damage bonus, so this is a little skewed, so let's just use for Vaporize something like Hu Tao, and she obviously doesn't use the emblem set, so let's pick Kazuha. Jingshou, she obviously needs some to enable it. I just put a random Zhongli here, just as placeholder, it doesn't matter, I can enable this, it affects both Sucrose and Kazuha in a similar way anyway, so. For her, we obviously go for charge attacks and Vaporize, and nothing else selected, everything is enabled, and generate build, you know it by now, see you when this is finished. And hey, we are done, and it's the Kazuha Hu Tao Vaporize team, and we have nearly 80k charged attacks with Vaporize and nearly 200k with her burst skill. Now we do this whole thing with Sucrose again. I could do it off the recording, but I don't want you to say that I forgot. So here we go, equip the builds, go back to Hu Tao and switch the team. And again, no C6. Not active, I want to make that clear. And same thing, charge attacks with Vaporize here in a minute. And it is done, the Hu Tao Sucrose Vaporize team, and we got 78k charge attacks. I believe Kazuha was 79k, so it's actually slightly less. Same for the burst skill, I think it was 200k, so we can actually say that the emblem set does skew the result a little bit in Sucrose's favor, so that's a good observation. If you play emblem set characters, this favors Sucrose, seemingly. And now we do go for the last thing. I think for Aggravate teams, most people would probably pick Fisher because of her Ascension 4, and Nahida is the best Andro character, I don't think that's even a debate, and we pick Sucrose again. We don't activate the C6 bonus. And there aren't any good elemental skill bonuses in the game other than the stringless, we have that equipped anyway. So I just go for the Ascension 4. We could also go for Os damage in the simulation here, but it really doesn't matter this much. Again, you will know. I will pause it for a minute here. Alright, it's done. As you see, we have Aggravate damage for the Fisher Sucrose Nahida team, and we have 12k hits with the Thundering Retribution and 16k with Oz. So same thing as always, we go to Kazuha, give him back his artifacts, equip, back to official, and switch Sucrose and Kazuha out. Again, everything is active, optimize, everything is still the same, everything is active, aggravate damage, Ascension 4, generate build, see you in a second. And it is done, the Kazuha version of the Aggravate official Nahida team, and we have 13k from the Ascension 4 passive and about 18k from OS hits. So again, it's a little bit more than Sucrose, but these Aggravate spread teams are a little nuanced, because if you have like a very support heavy Dendro character to just enable Quicken like Baiju for example, and then have Kazuha plus 2 electric characters like Fischl or Raiden, then I can see Kazuha being definitely better. But if you play something like Nahida, she contributes a lot to damage, and for that Sucrose would be better, so it kind of evens out. And same for Vaporize and Melt, honestly, the difference wasn't really that big. Let's just check Nahida's damage increase just for the fun of it. Same build, it's almost 28k with her Tri-Karma, which is pretty sizable. And now we put Kazuha in there, which essentially does nothing if she's off-field, but if she's on-field in her Elemental Burst skill, she obviously shares Kazuha's damage, Elemental Mastery stat with herself, which increases her damage a little bit. Actually, pretty substantially, I was kind of surprised there. And now we switch Sucrose back on her artifacts and see that. And equip. Back to Nahida. Teams, Sucrose, optimize, and yeah, it's almost double. It's almost at 33k. So yeah, I think it's a little nuanced here. You can build teams that favor either or the other, and for Vaporize or Melt, it's kind of even in my opinion. Alright, that kind of took way longer than I expected. Usually my videos are pretty scripted, but this was a little on the fly, so sorry about that. Anyway, my conclusion: Kazuha is better at mono element teams limited to the 4 elements he can buff, thinking mainly about mono, electro and freeze. For Aggravate, Vaporize and Melt, it's pretty even. Honestly, I wouldn't really bother too much to go with either one. And for Sucrose, she is better at transformative reactions, thinking mainly about taser teams, anything involving Bloom, and the catalyzed teams focused on spread damage. Another factor is Kazuha is a limited 5-star character, which means you have to actively target his banners to get him and his constellations in the first place. To be fair, if you are willing to get C2 Kazuha, this whole conversation is over, he's just better. And Sucrose, she is a 4-star character, which means you can get her and even her constellations naturally. And as you see, I don't base my decisions on C6 Sucrose, but if you manage to get there, then Kazuha can't keep up at all anymore until you get his constellations. That's my entire thought process behind this. If you managed to get this far and you feel like anything here was wrong or I missed something important, then let me know. I'm curious to hear it. Until then, have fun and bye bye.